Yep. Inside, I want to kill myself. We are on an 0-7 run over the last 2 days. After tonight was just complete bullshit. So that's how I'm going to start off this show. Horrible Sunday, 1-5. I don't even know what to tell you about that. I just don't want to do this anymore. I have never seen anything like this, man. With the slump continuing, 2 straight losses, not a good day at all. 0-4. I just have not had a good season, man. What can this slump that I'm on? The slump continues. I've reached a new peak, actually. I'm going to burn my Bruins hat, man. I don't know what is going on with the Bruins. March 8th, is that what it is? I don't even know. It's March 9th, I think. Who even knows, man? I don't know what day it is anymore. I don't even know what day it is anymore, man. Back with you after the worst day that I could possibly have. Back with you, as I always am. Until I die, at least. 0-2 yesterday, and yesterday did not go well for me. 0-5. The worst month that I've ever had in my 18 years doing this. I don't know what to even tell you about this anymore. Broke the slump yesterday as the slump discontinues. The slump continues. Somebody fucking kill me, please. I don't even know what I should do at this point other than potentially end it all. What's up, everybody? It's Toad back with you with Toadstool Sports. Monday, I believe it is President's Day, Tyrant's Day, February 16th, just college basketball, as we got hockey in the Olympics getting down to the quarterfinals. Haven't really been paying attention. I know the U.S. and Canada are basically headed for a championship match. It seems like that would be the case. Nothing else to really say about that. NBA still on break until Thursday, I believe. We went 1-0 on the show yesterday. Tulane had a pretty big lead early in the game. They had a double-digit lead in the first half. I think up 10 at the half, maybe, something like that. And they almost surrendered the lead, did not surrender it. They won the game outright. It got close at the end of the game. It was a really ugly, low-scoring game, which is good when you're taking points. And then the end of the game was kind of crazy, where UAB attempted a three-pointer from the corner that would have tied the game and sent it into overtime, and it went in and out, and they got an offensive rebound, but there was no time left, and all they could do was just put it back in for 2, which doesn't help because there's no time left at that point. They lose by 1, so we got the outright win by 1 with Tulane, but that 3 almost went in and sent the game into overtime, and then I would have been really pissed. I mean, if you have a game where your team is a plus 6.5 point favorite and you're winning the game outright. I think it was 56-53 at the time. Extremely low scoring game with seconds to go in the game. If that thing goes into overtime and you lose that bet, that's one of the worst beats imaginable. So luckily that did not happen. We got the outright win with Tulane. That line was actually down to 5, I think, when the game went off. So the line actually moved in my direction more than I expected it to. But that was, it was a win. That was good. Kyle, what's up, man? Thanks for hanging out. My only play was a winner, but I did like Ryder quite a bit, and I don't think they covered yesterday. So I don't know. I was on and off with my opinions on those games yesterday, and the game that I watched some of the games in the later game that I had on Belmont, Murray State. That was an insane swing in that game. Murray State was like winning the game by 20 plus probably, somewhere around the middle of the game. Then all of a sudden, Belmont's within 3, and then a couple minutes later, Belmont's winning the game by double digits. I'm like, this is crazy. Murray State, I think, just didn't score like at all in the second half. I don't know what happened to them in that game. That was pretty insane. Tyson, what's up? Thanks for hanging out. All right, let's get into today. It's all college basketball today. We have a couple of games that are up earlier, which I don't really have much of an opinion on these. We have some Southland action today. We have some really bad conferences in action with the MEAC and the SWAC. Don't have a whole lot to say about much of those. I'll talk about the TV games and whatever. There's a little bit of Colonial action. There are a couple of big games as well. I think 2. And then there's some, Northeast Conference games in here, Sun Belt. And I think that's basically it today. But the first game up at 2 p.m., Southeastern Louisiana, East Texas A&M. I don't know if this is a rescheduled game. It might be. It doesn't look like it is because I don't see the postponement on here. I don't know why it's a 2 p.m. game. Southeastern Louisiana just lost to Northwestern State. Not exactly a great loss there. And they actually lost at home to East Texas A&M earlier this year. Formerly Texas A&M Commerce, because they're in Commerce, Texas. They sounded too capitalist, man, so they had to change their name. Southeastern Louisiana was a 4.5-point favorite in that game, so you know what I say. When a team loses as a favorite at home in the first matchup, you usually want to look towards them on the road in the second matchup, and they're coming off a loss. That is probably what I would do here, a loss to a not great Northwestern State team. East Texas A&M is not a very good team. They just took a loss to McNeese, although they got absolutely destroyed. I mean, I'm not really surprised by that because East Texas A&M had a huge game before that against Stephen F. Austin, too, so they just couldn't keep up that amount of effort. And McNeese was coming off a bad performance, so they showed up for that one. I would lean towards Southeastern Louisiana in this one. Not a strong opinion, but that's how I would look at it. East Texas A&M has gone up from 1 to 2.5, though. Some of these initial line moves are not agreeing with me. Although sometimes the initial line move can be like a fake out because the professional bettors, they might set some of these numbers up to try to get a better number on their real play on the other side because they know when the lines first come out, I think some of the limits are lower and they know they can affect the lines. So they might come in and actually play the opposite side to what they actually want to drive the number to a better number and then come back and take that number. So some of that could be going on here. I'm not saying that's what's going on in this game. I don't know. But my situational handicap is what gives me that opinion there. 5 p.m. has this isolated game in the Sun Belt between Louisiana, formerly Louisiana Lafayette, and Old Dominion. This is not a good game. I don't think these teams have played this year either, so there's no second meeting that we could look at here either. Louisiana just lost at home to Coastal Carolina. It did end a 4-game win streak for them, so there is a possibility that it hangs them over a little bit. They were a small underdog in that one. Coastal's actually been decent this year, and Louisiana does have a pretty big game on deck against Arkansas State, who I keep saying is good, better than the record looks, but I don't know if that's necessarily cause for a look ahead. It might be, because Old Dominion's just been a bad team this year, man. The record is bad, but they did just get a nice momentum starting win against Georgia State. Georgia State, bad team as well. Looking at this game, though, if you look at I think the scheduling setup's a little bit worse for Louisiana, but if you look at the fact that Old Dominion has the worst conference record, they actually have a worse overall record, too, and yet they're laying 6.5. The public's going to look at that and have no clue why that's the case, but the odds makers are telling you Old Dominion is an undervalued commodity, and probably, if you look at KenPom, I'm assuming they're going to be unlucky. Yeah, they're a bottom 20 team in luck, so Old Dominion's not really as bad as they look. Louisiana is very bad, outside of the top 300 in KenPom, and they're almost in the top 100 in luck, so even though they are, I think, the better defensive team somewhat, I would probably lean towards Old Dominion in that one, laying the points. Just the number looks so misleading, man. But the money looks like it is coming in on Louisiana for what it's worth. 57% of tickets, 73% of the cash on Louisiana. Do with that information what you want to. I mean, there are some reservations that I would obviously have about Old Dominion. The fact that this game is going to be ugly, probably low scoring, points more to premium, total at 136. And if Louisiana's the better defense getting points, that's something I don't love fading in most cases, so I'm staying away. Garrett, 12-1 run, hell yeah. Prime rib, don't spend it all in one place, man. Grind it out and reinvest it, man. CBS Sports, the first TV game at 6 p.m. Colgate at Boston University. Colgate in this one, man, they're coming off a big game against Navy, and they lost that game. I watched the end of that game. It was a close game. I think it went into overtime, actually. That was a big game, man, for both teams, but Colgate really needed that win to stay in the potential running for the Patriot #1 seed, and now it looks like they're almost essentially locked into the 2 seed now with that second loss to Navy. That's not good. Or no, excuse me, first loss to Navy. They play Navy again at the end of the season, but they're not going to be able to catch Navy at this one, I don't believe. So Colgate could be in a hangover spot here. They did already beat BU at home, but the problem with that is that Colgate was a pretty big favorite in that game, and they only won by 1. So when you see a first meeting like that, when the home favorite barely scrapes by, sometimes they will actually take that team seriously in the next game. But again, the problem I have with this is that was such a big game against Navy, ending a win streak for them. It went into overtime. I think I would have to lean to BU in this one. BU, they're on a 4-game win streak, just kind of quietly beating some of the bad teams in the conference, but they're at least not one of the absolute bottom dwellers in this conference. Colgate's up from a 1-point favorite to a 2-point favorite. I would lean towards taking the points with BU, though, in that one. Seattle, was that Seattle versus Oregon State? Yeah, that's a game where Seattle, they can't play offense. They're pretty good on defense and not good on offense. And Oregon State, I think, is just an ugly team. I think they're pretty offensively deficient as well. It was probably a low total in that one, right, which usually does indicate that you probably should be looking towards an under. It's kind of it's almost counterintuitive. Like when you see a high total, though I know I was wrong about the Belmont-Murray State one because Murray State stopped scoring completely in the second half. But when you see like a high total, usually you actually want to look to go over because it's high for a reason. When you see a low total, you usually want to go under because it's low for a reason. But yeah, an under in that particular game seems to make sense. I mean, that's an ugly, ugly game. All right, next up is the best bet. My only best bet. Here we go. I do have, maybe one concern about this one, but we are going to take Syracuse. You might be able to find a 20 on this. I saw pretty much 19 and a halves out there. I can look right now and see if there are 20s. It does say 20 on the board on pregame, but it looks like it's pretty much just all 19 and a halves out there right now. So it's dropped a little bit in this direction. Ken Baum, I believe, has this number at about 19. But this is more of a fade of Duke than it is a play on Syracuse. And I actually don't even necessarily love the spot for Syracuse, but I despise the spot for Duke. So that's why we're doing this. Duke, 20 or 19.5-point favorite according to the board here. 65% of tickets, 73% of the cash on Syracuse. I think maybe early on it's just that the early money is coming in on Syracuse. I expect the public probably comes in on Duke in this game, even though they are laying a lot of points. Duke has not been a covering machine, though, man. In fact, Duke has been failing to cover in most of their games. I think they landed basically like right on the number in their last game, where I leaned to Duke in that one, and Duke was winning that game by 20+ pretty late in that game against Clemson, but I think they just kind of took their foot off the gas, and Clemson backdoored it. So sometimes that is a danger, but that would help us in this case, because if Syracuse backdoors it, we're fine with that, because we just need them to cover this in whatever way they can. We got a low total going on here in this one, 142.5. Duke plays slow, as I keep saying. Yeah, Duke's good on offense and on defense, but they play slow games, man. They play a lot of low-scoring games. Syracuse is actually a balanced team as well. If you look at Ken Pom, they're not that bad. They're in the top 70. They're in the top 70 on defense as well. More of a mid-tempo team, but they'll probably wind up playing slow because that's what Duke is going to do, but we're okay with that if we're taking 20 points, man, We're okay with it being a lower scoring game, of course, because that is going to be a really difficult ask for Duke to win in a blowout, especially when you see what the spot looks like. So, yeah, I don't think I have much else to say about the numbers here, but Ken Bum also does have Syracuse pretty unlucky at 256th in the country in luck. Duke is in the top 100 in luck. So Duke, according to Ken Bum, has actually overperformed a little bit. They've actually been sliding a little bit in the offensive rating. They're now barely hanging on to a top 10 offensive rating in Ken Bum's rankings. So all that to be considered there. Duke better on defense than offense, which again is okay when we're fading a team laying a ton of points. This game's on ESPN at 7 p.m. Now, I do worry a little bit about the spot for Syracuse because I did watch the end of that game. They played an overtime game where they beat Cal the game before that, but they did stay at home. But then they had a game where SMU was beating Syracuse for most of that game. Not by a lot, but SMU had like a small lead for pretty much the whole game. And then Syracuse won that game. I watched the end of it, and it was kind of an emotional win, and usually I will not want to be on a team after they have an emotional win like that. Syracuse got excited, when they won that game. I think SMU missed a shot that could have won them the game at the end, if I remember correctly. So it was a close win. It was a win against a decent SMU team that looks to be headed towards the tournament right now, but I just don't see Syracuse overlooking Duke, man. And I know the last time Syracuse went down to North Carolina, they did cover, although they had to make a huge comeback in that game. But that's part of the equation here, man, where if one of these teams just has a huge lead like North Carolina did, North Carolina just totally took their foot off the gas and started looking towards the next game. And there is definitely that potential with Duke in this game when you see what the schedule looks like. So I don't see Syracuse overlooking Duke here. Duke, they're coming off a very, very satisfying win against Clemson. And like I said, they were blowing Clemson out of that game. They won by 13, but the game was pretty much in hand. And yes, I know that means Duke had to put in less of an effort by the end of that game, but that's still, when you play Clemson, that's still a pretty punishing defensive game, man. And it was very satisfying for Duke. I told you that I thought they would be focused on that game, which is why I faded. Part of the reason why I faded Duke against Pitt. And Pitt did get him under that number barely, although Pitt should have had an easier time covering that number. It was a pretty low-scoring game, and Pitt was covering almost that entire game and did cover. But I thought Duke would have their eye on Clemson because Clemson was the one ACC team last year that only played Duke once and beat Duke. So Duke never got a chance at revenge against Clemson last year, and now they got it. They got their revenge against Clemson. They beat a ranked team. Really good win for Duke. Now they play Syracuse, and up next, they got this huge game against Michigan, man. They got an out-of-conference game. It's going to be a TV game in the Edward Jones Capital Showcase. And you know that people are going to be hailing this as like a potential Final Four preview, potential championship preview, however this is going to be advertised. It's going to be a huge game. So there is definitely the chance that Duke starts looking ahead. And if Duke has the lead towards the end of this game, there is definitely backdoor potential in this one where Duke might just start looking ahead and just pack it in a little bit early in this game. Like say Duke is up 20 points late in this game. They might take their foot off the gas, and Syracuse might make a little bit of a late run and cover the game that way. So we have that potential going on in this game too. But just in general, to me, it looks like a game where Duke's just going to want to get in, get out. It's a sandwich spot between two huge games against ranked teams. I think Duke just might want to get in, get out, not expend a ton of energy here. They don't have to blow Syracuse out. They just got to get in, get the win. As I say with these games with these massive spreads, they can win the game by double digits and not cover. So we're going to take the points with Syracuse, man, and that is my only play of the day. All right. The rest of these games here, we do have Wagner and Long Island as kind of a quick rematch. So I do kind of like those quick rematches and kind of look towards zigzag type of spots here. Long Island is the top team in the Northeast Conference. They did beat Wagner 2 games ago on the road. So sometimes I do like to look at that road team in the second meeting. And this is a quick road reversal revenge spot for Wagner. So Wagner, I do expect them to show up in this one. Long Island, kind of a trickier spot for them because they hadn't lost for quite a while. They'd won 6 or 7 games in a row, whatever this was. Finally took a loss to New Haven, which was a revenge game for New Haven, by the way. Now, when a team loses a long win streak, sometimes that will hang them over into the next game. So there are definitely some things that support Wagner here. The things that support Long Island would be they're coming off a pretty ugly loss to an inferior team, and I presume they were a road favorite in this one. Long Island probably was. Yeah, 6.5. So when a team loses as a favorite like that, sometimes they will bounce back from that. But also, the game against Wagner, the Long Island play was actually a lot closer than it looks on the scoreboard. So they actually might take Wagner a little bit more seriously. And Long Island was terrible shooting in this game. As I pointed out before, they only had 1 3-pointer in the game, which even for a team that doesn't take that many threes, 1 is just ridiculous. So there is maybe a little bit of room for regression, positive regression in that respect for Long Island. But Wagner gave Long Island a game in that one. So Long Island might take them seriously for that reason. So I don't want anything to do with the game, really. There are conflicting factors in this game. Long Island's gone up for a 10-point favorite to a 10.5-point favorite. I kind of still lean towards the quick road revenge angle and taking the points here, and laying a lot of points like that in this conference is usually not the greatest idea. It's a low total again in this one at 137. So covering double digits is a pretty big ask in a game like that. My lean is towards taking the points, but my opinion in that one is not strong. All right. Morgan State and NC Central is, I guess, interesting in the MEAC because these are two of the top three teams in the conference standing-wise. NC Central, I think it's between them and Howard for the best team in this conference. I think Morgan State is, I don't know if I want to say fraudulent, but I think Morgan State is not as good as their record looks. Now, NC Central did already go into Morgan State and beat them on the road, though. So there is a little bit of a road reversal revenge angle here for Morgan State. But I don't think NC Central is going to overlook this game because they just had an atrocious loss at home to Coppin State. Coppin State is awful, like a bottom 10 team. Even that might even be putting it mildly. I don't know where Ken Baum has them exactly, but they're really, really bad. Oh, they're the second worst team in all of Division I, only better than Mississippi Valley State. So there you go. Horrible, horrible team. NC Central, I think we're double-digit favorites in that game and lost that game. And I like double-digit favorites to bounce back off of an atrocious loss like that. So I don't really think NC Central is going to overlook this thing. And Morgan State's ahead of them in the standings too, so they shouldn't overlook them. And Morgan State, again, they're not as good as their record looks. They're coming off a win over Maryland Eastern Shore or whatever. Maryland Eastern Shore was near the top of this conference early in conference play, but they're not actually very good. 6 wins in a row for Morgan State. And again, I think it's a bit of an outlier. One of them was against a non-Division I team. They had 3 1-point wins on the road during that stretch. So, they're getting a little bit lucky and winning a bunch of toss-up games there. Like, it was very, very easy. It would have been very easy for them to lose 1 or 2 of those games. And then they beat horrendous Coppin State prior to that Maryland Eastern Shore game. And now they've had a postponement. And that postponed game might actually hurt them because when you're winning games, you want to just keep playing, man. You do not want to have extra time off. So I would have to lean to NC Central in this one. They've dropped from a 5-point favorite to a 3.5-point favorite. I don't agree with that move. And this game does have a bit of a higher total for a conference like this in the 150s. I would look towards laying it with NC Central in that one. Jeff, what's up, man? You like Jackson State? I will talk about that game, I guess, because I'll talk about it right now because it is a actually I'll talk about Alabama State first, but this game, yeah, it's a TV game for whatever reason. Jackson State is probably because Bethune-Cookman is actually the best team in the SWAC. Jackson State's not awful. Mississippi, at least they're not awful for that conference. Mississippi Valley State, as we know, they're the worst team in Division I, but I would have to lean to them in this game against Alabama State. Alabama State won this conference last year, the SWAC. They're not as good this year. They did just beat Arkansas Pine Bluff, who is tied in second place in the conference right now. So that was a pretty good win for Alabama State, even though I don't think Pine Bluff, I think they're Pine Bluffing. I don't think they're as good as their record looks. But Alabama State does have the actual best team in the conference on deck, Bethune-Cookman, who are in first place as well. I think Bethune-Cookman and Southern are the two best teams. And, Alabama State played Southern to within 1 point on the road prior to that game against Pine Bluff. They could look right past the worst team in Division I here, man, Mississippi Valley State. They already beat them by 20 points on the road. They got Bethune-Cookman on deck. So as ugly as it is, I would be looking towards Mississippi Valley State plus the points. I think they might have covered their last game. Mississippi Valley State, they only had a 7-point loss in their last game. We see 50-50 on the tickets, 51% of the cash on Alabama State, but those are percentages that you really can't read much into because they're so close to the 50% range. I don't think you can really gather much from that. Alabama State down from 15 to 14.5 here. I would take the points in that one, but man, it is ugly. ESPNU here, Jeff, your game here. Jackson State against Bethune-Cookman. Jackson State, they're the team that I've talked about the last 2 years where they face an extreme gauntlet in out-of-conference play. So 2 years in a row, Jackson State lost their first 10, 11 games, whatever, because they were playing all these really good teams out of conference. But it battle tests you, man, and then you start playing better during conference play, and that's what they've done again this year. They're not as good as Bethune-Cookman, though. Bethune-Cookman is coming off a loss. Now, one thing that you will like, Jeff will like, one thing that does point you towards Jackson State here, well, there are two things. One is that Bethune-Cookman just lost a long win streak. They had an 8-game win streak. Losing a win streak like that can definitely hang you over, and that's what they did. They lost to Alcorn State. But I will have some concerns about that because Bethune-Cookman was a big favorite in this one. They were 8.5-point favorites, and, you know, a lot of times I will like a team. If they lose as a big favorite, that's pretty embarrassing, and a lot of times you will get focus out of them in the next game. So that is one concern that I would have with fading Bethune-Cookman. But, yes, they are coming off they lost a long win streak, and, yes, that can definitely hang you over. And they already beat Jackson State in a totally embarrassing way. They beat them 85-48 at Bethune-Cookman, beat them by almost 40 points. So because of that, yeah, they might overlook Jackson State for that reason and not take them as seriously. Jackson State comes into this game beating Florida A&M and staying at home. Not a big deal there with that win. Season sweep over a very mediocre Florida A&M team in this conference. I think Jackson State will have their sights set on this. I'm not going to disagree with Jackson State in this one. I will agree, but this one's not on my card. It looks like the market read right now does agree with this one. Bethune-Cookman down from 6 to 5, 50-50 on the tickets, 84% of the cash on Jackson State. Part of this is also that I think if the public is looking at this game because they want to play a TV game, Jackson State's out-of-conference record looks really, really miserable. So the public is probably only going to want to side with Bethune-Cookman here. But like I said, Jackson State, their out-of-conference schedule was insane. They played Illinois, Louisville, Auburn, Arkansas. Winthrop is really good in the Big South. They played Houston in there. Northwestern's not as bad as they look. TCU is just a real roller coaster of a team that can beat any of the TCU can beat the best teams in college basketball, man. So I kind of want them to make the tournament just because they sort of have a giant killer mentality, even though they also lose to terrible teams. But yeah, Jackson State had a really difficult out-of-conference schedule is what my point is there. Bethune-Cookman's best player, Doc Bradley, might be out again. All right, that's good to know. Well, the problem is if it's like his second game out, I don't know how many games he's been out, but, you know, I talk about the injured player theory. The first game where your star player is out, you usually play a lot. You usually play with a lot of effort to compensate for that. But then in that second game, if you did do well in that first game, a lot of times you won't play as well in that next game. So I don't know if they're in that spot or not. But Bethune-Cookman didn't play well in their last game, and that's the reservation that I have with Jackson State here is that I don't like fading the better team when they're off a really ugly loss, and that's what happened to Bethune-Cookman. So that's like everything else would kind of have me looking towards Jackson State, though, you know, the revenge angle, etc. But I worry if Bethune-Cookman was rolling into this game, I would like it more. But I worry about well, I don't know, because they did lose a long win streak, so I don't know. Sometimes that will hang you over as well, like I said. I don't know. That game, yeah, I went back and forth on it. I'll agree with you on that one with Jackson State, but I have, you know, my worries about it, where you could make the argument it's a bounce-back spot for Bethune-Cookman. All right, what other games are we going to talk about here? Coppin State, of course, like I mentioned, they just pulled off an absurd upset of NC Central as double-digit underdogs on the road. So you know I'd be looking to fade them coming off a performance like that. They did lose at home to this South Carolina State team they're playing here now, but that was such a ridiculous win for Coppin State. A team like them that's going absolutely nowhere this year, that's like your win of the season, that type of thing. So even though, yeah, they might ideally try to get up for a team that beat them on their own floor, everybody beats Coppin State on their own floor, man. South Carolina State is a bad team in their own right. They're just better than Coppin State, but 4.5 points, I would probably have to lay it with South Carolina State, but would I really want to lay points with a team as bad as South Carolina State? Probably not. They're not going to be laying points like this to very many teams in Division I, man, at all. Like, probably really the only two teams would be Coppin State and Mississippi Valley State, who hilariously are both playing today. But yeah, because Coppin State is coming up that upset, I would lay it with South Carolina State in this one. I certainly don't love it, though. They're a 4.5-point favorite in that one, South Carolina State is. I think in their last game they beat Delaware State or something, which is not an impressive win. Let me see. Oh, no, they lost to Howard. Actually, they got blown out by Howard. I don't know why I was thinking they beat Delaware State. That was a couple games ago. So, actually, South Carolina State could be in a bounce-back spot. Howard, I think, is actually the best team in the MEAC, though. So, maybe that loss isn't quite as bad as it looks. But South Carolina State is looking to bounce back from a blowout loss. So, it really only makes sense to play them in this game if you're going to play it, which I don't really recommend it at all. But, yeah, 75% of tickets, 80% of the cash on South Carolina State. I usually pretty much just completely avoid the MEAC and the SWAC, yeah, because anything could happen. Yeah, these are crazy, they're horrible conferences, and they're just unpredictable. So, I don't know. I typically avoid those two conferences, although I guess I'll very occasionally jump into those conferences and have a play, but I think it would take quite a bit for me to have a play in those conferences. I think I've had plays involving teams from those conferences out of conference this year so far. Sun Belt, we have South Alabama at Marshall. This is actually a pretty good game. South Alabama is now in first place in the conference, although I still think Troy is better than they are. Don't really know about App State. I don't know where App State is coming from. But South Alabama is playing a third straight road game now. They haven't played Marshall this year, I don't believe. I think this might be the only time they play. But third straight road game, plus they just beat Arkansas State on the road and pulled off, I believe, an upset because it was an overtime game, too. Arkansas State is good in this conference, man. I think they're one of the best teams in this conference, despite what their conference record looks like. If you look at this game, South Alabama was losing this entire game, dude. They were losing by double digits with whatever that is, less than 5 minutes to go. They were down 12 points, and they somehow sent the game into overtime and won. I don't know how they did that, but that type of effort takes a lot out of you, man. Now, even though, yeah, they're playing Marshall, who's pretty good in the conference, South Alabama now having taken over first place with a win like that, to me it looks like it's going to be a letdown spot for them, so I would have to lean to Marshall in this one. Marshall's coming off a pretty ugly loss at Georgia Southern where they gave up over 100 points, which is pretty bad. So I think Marshall should be refocused after that, coming back home. Last time they were on their home floor, they got fairly embarrassed by Miami, Ohio. I know it's Miami, Ohio. I know Miami, Ohio was a bit of a favorite in that one. I know Miami, Ohio is undefeated, whatever, but when a team returns home and their last home game was a double-digit loss like that, usually they will focus. So the only way that I could look at this game is Marshall. The money looks like it's not even agreeing with me. Marshall down from 5.5 to 3.5. I don't get this move at all, or the fact that we have 62% of tickets, 76% of the cash on South Alabama. I don't see the argument for it at all. This is actually probably one of the better leans, to be honest. I lean to Marshall in that one. So I gave out Syracuse as a play. Out of the games so far, this is probably the second strongest lean, man. I'm not going to lie. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't understand the market behavior in that one. Lamar is at UT Rio Grande Valley. UT Rio Grande Valley is coming off losing a long win streak, so that's strike one against them because, you know, I like fading teams that lose win streaks because it can hang them over, just like I said with Bethune-Cookman. Was it Bethune-Cookman? I think so. But Rio Grande Valley here, though, they're, I think, in a better fade spot because not only did they lose an 8-game win streak or whatever, but they did it at home against Stephen F. Austin, who is the top team in the standings in the Southland, although I still think McNeese is the better team. I told you this spot actually set up better for Stephen F. Austin because they were coming off a very bad performance against a bad team in the conference, so I think they refocused and they got the job done. But this game was pretty close. It was a big game for Rio Grande Valley. The game was nearly tied. I think it was tied, or no, they were down 1 with less than 5 minutes to go. They were still within 2 possessions in the final minute, so Rio Grande Valley had a big game, man. So I think they could be in a double hangover spot here after losing a long win streak, plus doing it against one of the best teams in the conference. If they had McNeese on deck, I would actually jump in and fade UT Rio Grande Valley here, but they only have Southeastern Louisiana next, who they did beat, but they only beat them by 5 at home, so maybe they will actually show up for Sela on deck. They're playing Lamar here tonight. Against Lamar, they already did beat Lamar on the road by double digits, so they might overlook Lamar, man. So another part of the situation in favor of Lamar in this one. Lamar is coming off losing to Texas A&M Corpus Christi. They're one of the better teams in this conference, but double-digit loss, 3 losses in a row. The first of those was on the road to Stephen F. Austin. You can't really blame Lamar for that. Lamar's not a horrible team, but, third road game in 4 games, I guess a slight concern for me here, but I would have to lean to Lamar in this one. I think this is one of the stronger opinions as well. Rio Grande Valley's at -6 here, so you're getting a lot of points with Lamar, all things considered. Ken Bum's got Rio Grande Valley as a pretty underrated team, though. They're an unlucky team, and they're fairly good defensively, so... but laying points with them like this may not be the best idea. Lamar is actually at least not horrendous defensively. They're also very unlucky, even unluckier according to Ken Bum, and they play slow. So... yeah, take all that into consideration. I think it definitely makes sense to take the points of Lamar on that one. That one is probably close to being on my card as well. I do like that one. If you want me to talk about some of these other games, I can. Tarleton State is in a double revenge spot against Abilene Christian because the WAC has these teams playing each other for the 3rd time. Tarleton State actually lost both games at home, I think, as well, to Abilene Christian, if I'm not mistaken. No, one was at home, one was on the road, my mistake. But they literally just lost them in the previous game by double digits on the road. So you could make the argument there's a bit of a zigzag component to this where Tarleton State should make the adjustments off of that and fix some things that went wrong. But if you look at this game, it wasn't really a misleading result necessarily. I mean, Tarleton State... it looks like the stats were pretty close shooting-wise. And then you see Abilene Christian had way more free throw attempts, and they made a much higher percentage of them. So that is an outlier that basically it's one of the main reasons why Abilene Christian won the game. But Abilene Christian dominated the rebounds in this game. So that would be a concern with looking towards Tarleton State here. Like, they just might not have the paint presence to be able to beat Abilene Christian. And Abilene Christian had a ton of turnovers in the game, 22, so that's an outlier going in the other direction, where that would tell you that Abilene Christian actually played better than it looks. So I can't really zigzag this because the stats are kind of going in both directions here on the stat sheet. So it's a stay away from me. But yeah, it is a quick zigzag spot. It is a double revenge spot. I would probably still lean to Tarleton in that one, although they have dropped from a 2.5-point favorite to a 1.5-point favorite. That is still probably the way I would lean in that game, though. And, I don't think the public is really going to even be looking at this game. Both teams have similar records, so it's not really going to be a thing where they're going to look at this game and think one thing or the other. Florida A&M is at Alcorn State. I did point out Alcorn State just got that nice upset win over Bethune-Cookman. So possible they're hungover coming off of that. They did lose at Florida A&M already, though, so they might still show up for this because it's a little bit of a revenge spot there. But I do think they're kind of in a letdown spot here. Now, for Florida A&M, though, because they already beat Alcorn, they might overlook Alcorn for that reason, and that's kind of the problem. But Florida A&M is coming off a 20-point loss as well to Jackson State, so maybe Florida A&M will show up a little bit better in this one, and that is probably the way I would have to lean here. Alcorn flipped from a 1.5-point favorite, 1.5-point dog, to a 1-point favorite, so we did see a favorite flip on that, but I would kind of disagree with it. I think just primarily they're in a letdown spot, so I'd probably fade them there. All right, I don't think I have too much else to say about the rest of those games. We do have a CBS Sports Network game, Drexel and Stony Brook in the Colonial at 8 p.m. This is a TV game. Not a good TV game, but a TV game. Drexel beat Stony Brook at home earlier this year, and they held them to 37 points. So, there could be a revenge aspect to this, or maybe Drexel just won't take Stony Brook seriously. That was before Stony Brook went on that crazy, 5-game win streak or whatever, though. But 56-37, that is man, that is a hideous game for one thing, but you get held to 37 points. I think you're going to show up with a better offensive effort the next time you play that team. Drexel is coming off a pretty ugly loss, though. They just lost at home by 20 points to Monmouth. They were coming off road upset, I believe, of Elon the game before that, so maybe there was some letdown component there, and they'd already beaten Monmouth on the road the first time. So I think I did give out a lean on Monmouth in that game because there was a road revenge angle there as well. Stony Brook probably is going to show up, though, because of the embarrassing performance they had the first time against Drexel, and they're also coming off a loss by double digits at Towson, which is a little bit more of an acceptable loss. Towson's not really that bad. So I would probably have to lean to Stony Brook in this one. When the money's coming back in on Drexel, I don't know. I don't really agree with it. I mean, if Stony Brook had that disgustingly bad performance the first time at Drexel, you got to think they're going to be the team that has some adjustments to make. They're up from 3.5 to 4 here. 64% of the tickets are on them, though, and 63% of the cash on Drexel. So the money is indicating on Drexel. I don't really agree with it in that one, but it's not a game that I would really consider touching. The total's at 133.5. We saw, of course, the total in the previous game didn't even reach 100. But that was just a major outlier, man. Like, I think I would probably lean over in this game because people are going to look at that previous game and see how absolutely pitiful it was and think, oh my God, that game landed, more than 30 points lower than what this number is. Well, that's just, it was just a complete outlier of a game, though. So I don't think you really put much weight into that. What was the total in this game? Total is 132.5, and now it's basically the same in this game. So the odds makers are telling you not to be fooled by this. These teams shot horribly in this game, too. Stony Brook did. Stony Brook was absolutely unbelievably bad in this game. 20% from the field in that game. That is so bad. Drexel wasn't exactly great, 39%. Although they did hit some threes in the game. But the teams also barely went to the free throw line at all in that game. So you might see some regression towards regularity in this game. So I think an over kind of makes sense in that game too, even though usually I want to play low totals under. That game I would not. 50-50 on the tickets, 89% of the cash on the over. I'm not a totals guy though, except in baseball, but that's the way that I would look at that game though. Stephen F. Austin at Texas A&M Corpus Christi is not a terrible game in the Southland. In the late slate here, Stephen F. Austin is on a long win streak here. They've only lost one game in conference, which was a home game to McNeese, and they're 1-1 against McNeese with the road team winning both games, I believe. Or no, wait, they won at home against McNeese, right? Yeah, the home team won both games, I think. Yeah, correct, yes. My mistake. Stephen F. Austin is coming off that battle against Rio Grande Valley, UT Rio Grande Valley. Tough game, man, for sure. And now they're playing another fairly competitive opponent here, Texas A&M CC, and they already beat them at home. They only beat them by 9, though. But Stephen F. Austin actually covered that number. They were 6.5-point favorites. Now they're actually 5.5-point road favorites here. So it seems like the line might be a little high, man. I know you have to adjust a little bit from what Stephen F. Austin has done since then. They've won almost every game since then, so you do have to adjust them up in your power ratings a bit, but this line almost being where it was when they were at home does make it seem like it's a bit high. Playing 2 pretty competitive road games in a row here. I would probably have to lean to A&M CC in this one, man. A&M CC just righted the ship with a win over Lamar. They have to play Stephen F. Austin and McNeese back-to-back, which is not easy for them. They should be angry at the schedule makers for that, but I think they'll show up in this one. I would take the points with A&M CC in this one if I was going to do anything with it. Stephen F. Austin's up from 4.5 to 6 now here. 78% of tickets, only 62% of the cash on them, so the public is all over Stephen F. Austin in that one for the most part, if they're going to be playing that game. And there are few games once you get into the later slate, so they might. But yeah, those are my thoughts on that one. And then the other huge game, the biggest game of the day, is this ESPN game at 9 p.m. This is a really good game, man. Number 3, Houston at number 5, Iowa State. This is a crazy game, very good game. Both of these teams are elite teams, man. There's no way to state it otherwise. Ken Bum has Houston as the 4th best team and Iowa State 7th. So very, very close to what the rankings makers have. These are both, they're both completely legit teams. They're both better on defense than offense. Houston, of course, we know they play really, really slow. Iowa State is slightly slow tempo as well. So I wouldn't disagree with an under in a game like this, where I think it's going to be more of a heavyweight type of fight. The numbers already dropped a bit from 136.5 to 135, though. 81% of tickets and 97% of the cash on the over. But I'd be leaning under in this one because, again, both teams are better on defense than offense. Looks like it's going to be kind of a heavyweight type of fight. As far as the side is concerned, I would probably have to lean to Houston because Iowa State is coming off a great game where they beat Kansas 2 days ago. That was a huge win for Iowa State. But remember, they caught Kansas off of that great win that they had against Arizona. And, I gave out Iowa State. That was the first game that we had on the card for me on Saturday, and that was a win to kick off our 2-2 college basketball day, which I'm not happy about, obviously, but we got a win with Iowa State. So it was a good spot to play them. Very, very satisfying win. Now, they're not going to overlook Houston, but Houston is a step up from even Kansas, man. Even though Kansas is pretty good, Ken Bum's got Kansas 15th. Kansas is not that good offensively. Houston is actually better on both sides of the ball than Kansas, but they're way better offensively, too. Even though Houston, they've had their struggles offensively, but they're still pretty good on offense right now, man. 12th on offense, according to Ken Bum. 5th in defense. Iowa State 17th and 6th, respectively. Houston's coming off a much easier game where they just got in, got out against Kansas State, didn't come close to covering. They won by 14. I think they were, 20. I was going to say they were 20-plus point favorites in this one. They didn't need to. It was exactly what I said, man, that they were going to just get in, not put in a full effort in that one, win by double digits and not cover. So that's exactly what I said. That is exactly what happened. But Houston does play slow as well. So, but I thought they were going to be looking ahead to this one. Now, I guess the one dangerous aspect of this for Houston, other than the fact that they're having to step up there are two. They're having to step up in class. Iowa State's going to be the best team they face in conference play. So Houston has not faced a team as good as Iowa State for quite a while here, man. The best team they face in conference play is Texas Tech, probably. They faced BYU, too. And BYU, by the way, just lost one of their best players to injury. I forget his name. Saunders, is that his name? The white dude with the blonde curly hair. He's out for the season, so that's a huge blow to BYU. So we'll see how that winds up affecting them. But that sucks for BYU. But yeah, Texas Tech is at least better than BYU. They're 16th, according to Ken Bum. So they're not a bad team. Houston went 1-1 against Texas Tech. But yeah, the dangerous things are Houston has to step up in class to play Iowa State here, and Houston is playing a third road game in 4 games, although they did win both other road games. They were in elevation, though. One of them was against BYU. Good win for Houston against BYU. BYU, a dangerous team, but those road games can kind of take their toll a little bit, but it is an ESPN game. Both teams will get up for it. I'll still have a slight lean to Houston in this one, even though they look like they're the public side. 72% of tickets and cash on them. Iowa State's a 2.5-point favorite here, but I still think because Iowa State's coming off the much, much better looking win, the much, much better game, I would have to lean against them a little bit there, but I don't really love the side in that game at all. It'll be probably a fun game to watch, though. But under might be my preference in that game out of anything. All right, that's going to do it, man. We got nothing else today. It's all just college basketball today. Thanks, guys, for hanging out. The one play I have is Syracuse plus 19.5. I don't think we're going to see the 20 on it. It looks like it's actually starting to move down a little bit further, so I guess we'll just grab the 19.5. That's going to do it. Hopefully we get a win with another sandwich there. Duke is in a sandwich. I don't know what kind of sandwich because it's between Clemson and Michigan, so I don't know. There's no real correlation there between what those places eat probably, but maybe it's a burger. They eat burgers everywhere. There you go. They're in an American sandwich, American hamburger sandwich. That's going to do it, man. Learn to Toad on Twitter. You can subscribe to me there if Twitter ever comes back because it's having major issues this morning, so I don't even know if this Twitter part of the stream is even working. But you can subscribe to me there. Give me some support if you want. Bonus uke content there for the most part if you do that for the time being. Learn to Toad on Instagram for the short form betting content there. Like, subscribe to the channel here. Give me good replies. You know, it's boost this channel up. We're on audio as well. Listening over there and giving me good reviews over there helps me out. Spotify, Apple. Covered in Uke is my Uke channel on YouTube. I got to get a couple Uke covers up there still because I'm constantly doing them. So you can check that out. Like, you know, subscribe over there too. Give me replies over there too. Patreon.com/LearnToToad. You get some bonus Uke stuff, bonus Uke feed there. You can request stuff, which I may or may not actually do, depending on what the song is and if it's doable. And it's easier if I already know the song. Like, if I know what the song is, at least it makes it easier. And I can do it more quickly because I don't have to keep listening to the song to figure it out. Yeah, I don't know what else there is. I might start doing Uke streams as well, man. Like, just jams, just hang out, talk to people while I just mess around with it. Similar to what Assbutt does on his show with his piano. The very talented Assbutt. I forget what the name of his show is, though. Which I've been on a couple of times. What else do I have to promote here? Oh, Loser Cast tomorrow night after Legion of Skanks. You can check that out, too. I've not decided on a loser, but you can go check that out. That'll be tomorrow night, 10 p.m. Eastern, the new comedy podcast that I'm part of. That's going to do it. And Leighton and I were both on the Golden Shower Power Hour Twitter space last night, which is a comedy. I don't know. It's a hangout space, but I believe because of the Twitter malfunctions, the space just cut out before it was actually going to end. Although we were kind of wrapping it up at that point, but you go check that out. It was Leighton's. Leighton was the guest, but I kind of bombed the show. I guess you know me. I don't stop talking. So, but you can check that out as well on Twitter. It should be up already. That's going to do it. Peace for now, everybody.